What's up, y'all? We're here for our weekend reflection message. From the Radiant Sun Oracle, we've got the Saturn in Scorpio, which is inheritance. We have the Moon in Virgo, which is order. And we have Jupiter in Virgo, which is patience. Underneath inheritance, we have the Lovers. Underneath order, we have King of Swords. And underneath patience, we have the Page of Pentacles. I'm going to let you all listen to the audio really quickly, and then we'll come right back. We've been working long and hard to unravel the cords that bind us to the sins of the generation of our bloodlines. This implies not only breaking patterns passed down, but cleansing ourselves of soiled negative belief systems that festered from defense mechanisms, coping mechanisms, escape mechanisms, cyclical abuse mechanisms that can range on a spectrum and that may have occurred over spans of generations. We inherit these not only cellularly, but in both material and subtle ways. We are the generation that sees and makes the connection and says, this stops here. We're dismantling and rebuilding and restoring our collective path towards revealing the true light of our souls as our consciousness is cleansed of negative contaminates. We have to look at how we perceive with lack and disrupt that train of thought, and in spite of it, not denial of it, choose to look for the abundance and the potential miracles that could come through any given situation. This is so that we are generating blessings and not curses. We can do this passively without realizing it when we worry and fret or grow pessimistic. This is a process and a practice, so be patient with yourself, understanding that the journey is the point. There's also a practical side note in this message to adopt healthier practices and make an effort to take care of yourself and practice more work-life balance and care for your physical well-being. All right. Oh, first of all, I set up my Substack for the paid subscription. So that's coming along step by step. I need to do Patreon too, but that was a process last night. It was getting kind of late, but steps were taken, guys. Proud of myself. If you were watching last night's manifestation video, we were setting goals over the next, several days to get chipped away at, to take advantage of the waxing moon energy. And that was one of my parts and pieces. So the task isn't complete yet, but it's being done. It's in progress, as they say. All right. So we have inheritance here with the Lovers card. Now, I feel like we're coming to a moment where we are being shown a lot of in a societal macrocosm, we're being shown all of the ways that we were propagandized, programmed, given ideologies that aren't really authentic to our own beliefs as adults. We were, even in the most mundane ways, given a plan for life that only worked for like one generation, and it pretty much set us up for failure as we, weren't there to catch the waves of change because we were going by an old plan. So, we are dismantling a lot. We're dismantling our literal approach to our breaking bread and survival in life. We're visiting our religious beliefs and the things that we were given. Many people are deconstructing what I'm doing is rebuilding the temple. We're approaching scripture and spirituality from a fresh set of eyes, but not too fresh. We're going by the original intent, the ancient wisdom application to interpreting the scripture. So, do like seeing things a new way, right? But so many of us in our families were handed down, generations of programming and conditioning, right? How many people have, just in the last 2 generations have suffered, like, say, an alcoholic grandfather that was really hard on the kids, and then you had a hard father who, was in response to the alcoholism, and then that trickled down into your family of, like, the patterns that you took from, that generational thing will keep going back, right? What if you had extreme situations of, domestic violence passed down, and parents who had drug addiction that traumatized you as a child, right? And you were neglected and put into these traumatic situations. What if you had generations of familial physical abuse or sexual abuse? These things get passed down, and they stretch back through our families for hundreds of years, thousands of years. And so they move along through our bloodline, in our cellular makeup, and in our soul family and our soul progression. And they're handed down in our own reactive behavioral patterns and coping mechanisms and escape mechanisms and addictions, or the way we might verbally, communicate, or the way that we can or cannot have healthy relationships. They get passed down in narcissism and in different personality disorders. So when we start to unpack these things and realize them and see them in context, then from there we can sort of recalibrate and move forward with, I guess, like another layer of perspective in our healing. And I think that when we see those patterns that have been passed down, and we see those tendencies coming up within us, the more that we recognize them, it really helps us in the process of dismantling them. Because if you see that your autopilot is triggered and you can recognize that and know what it is, then you can separate from that automated system, right? And say, no, actually, I'm stepping back. I'm not going to behave that way. I'm not going to self-sabotage in this way. I'm not going to do the thing that my father's side of the family always did, or my mother's side of the family always did. I'm going to step out and break that pattern and break that chain and be the generation where it says, not this time, not this generation, this stops here, right? Even if it gets lesser and lesser and lesser with each generation, it's like at some point, somebody somewhere in the line has to say, you know what? I see it clearly for what it is. We're dismantling this. It's not going forward. We're not spilling this over into continuing generations. We're not going to continue to be in a chain of waking sleep, going through life, not having any sort of self-awareness or self-realization. So I think we're seeing all of these things. And now the Lovers is about the path that you choose. Is it led from unconscious defense mechanisms and limiting beliefs and a consciousness of lack and being sort of the victim of circumstance and being in a state of reactivity? Or are you going to take a step back and pull yourself out of being reactive and affected and try to observe and heal and choose with like free will and sovereignty, self-control? What do I want? What thought do I want to nurture? What mindset do I want to nurture? What emotions do I want to be feeling? Because that's going to be dependent on my consciousness, right? So I have to choose the path that I want to move forward in, and I have to choose each step to go forward and to lead my collective family and that collective soul group in a new direction, on a new path, on a new timeline. One of these scientists, I think his name was something Wilcox, one of the ones that disappeared recently, was just talking about how I guess maybe the Intergalactic Space Federation, maybe an individual entity from that, had been communicating with him in some way, or for some reason he had like an inside information on where we stand in terms of like ETs and the greater relationship that has throughout the history of religion and things, and also the cosmic scale of human, of the cosmic scale of where we are metaphysically. And so the test of humanity is such that there were a lot of concerns and a lot of predictions and prophecies that there were going to be major catastrophic events, pole changes, and all of those things that kind of were also interwoven and in the goulash of apocalyptic, I guess, culture and paranoia and belief systems. And I mean, I feel like some sects of Christianity, you might as well call them the denomination of the end times. You might as well call them dispensationalists. And even, like, it's like this, it's like they believe their focus is about more learning about the end times than it is about learning about the actual teachings, the beliefs, or the teachings of Jesus, and the behaviors, like the ideologies and values of Jesus. It's like they're like, yeah, that's all nice, but they're like mostly obsessed with all of that kind of stuff, right? So it's like, dismantling all of this and putting it in context. But anyway, so the aliens apparently had told him, according to him, that we had hit at least enough of a critical mass on Earth to prove that we understand Jesus's message, and that we know the value of treating our neighbor as ourselves, and we're moving into the direction of an evolution towards that Christ consciousness of loving one another and finding ways to, or like, value harmony and union over like greed and consumption and destruction and death. It's just that the people in charge right now, the few people that are left, are clinging, and just like any narcissistic, and this was another person that I heard talking about this, they're like, any narcissist that's losing control starts to become very destructive and very dangerous, either grasping for the last bastion of control or taking the ship down with them. So that's kind of where we're at in like the global like evolution right now, according to like this dude, and then some more commentary by this other person. It was unrelated, but this person disappeared recently, and he was an expert in the field of like aerospace and all of that. So I don't know, after everything that we've been hearing, it's maybe worth something not to completely dismiss everything that people say. So hopefully, maybe, we can continue on towards choosing our path forward from a loving perspective. We're not perfect, I say it all the time. I'm a total wretch. Like round the clock self-help and effort, and I'm still just barely would consider myself a good person. Not kidding. I'm pretty decent, but I'm still a salty bee sometimes, that's for sure. So even like down to like, we can't change things as individuals. We can't change the whole macrocosm when we look at it that way. But when we can look at the subtle changes that we make in our own heart and our own life, and realize that our actions and our choices have a domino effect on the world. So if everybody on Earth decides, hey, what's the use of trying to recycle or trying to compost? Big whoop, the world's ending anyway. Well, we're in a climate crisis. But if each individual person is like, I'm going to make an effort, and hopefully these recyclables that I am rinsing and lovingly sorting will make it to where they need to go. And I'm going to keep trying to balance for the harm that's being done. I may not be able to take on all of the horrors, but I can be a balancing factor. And that's what another person was saying, right? Like all of these people are contributing their positivity. And when we just take three little ideas that other people have put into the zeitgeist, and you take those ideas together, you're like, yeah, we can be a balancing factor. We are adding little pebbles to that scale of mercy and judgment. And, my cosmic scale in my living room, I like to think of my place as like Dumbledore's study. And I have this cosmic scale. It's like this beautiful chandelier looking Libra scale. And I kind of put this like charm on it, this intention that it would reflect back to me in my life. Like, am I, are my actions leading me into storms of judgment, or are my actions getting me more towards that of mercy? And so the scales are usually, pretty even throughout the year. Sometimes they lean more than others, but right now it is like really dramatically favoring the side of mercy, which is interesting too, because I recently just balanced and tightened all of the hardware on that scale. So it should be functioning better than it was before. So hopefully that's true, but it's not the kind of thing where we can go back to brunch and fall asleep. We have to keep staying vigilant and determined. Now, part of this is like cultivating that inner landscape. Order with the King of Swords. The King of Swords is what I would call an emotionally sober individual. They have risen above the noise of the mental chatter, and they can control themselves. They have self-control. And so because of that, they have more authority over their energy and their influence. Uranus just moved into Gemini, so everybody's talking about how that's going to affect like the ways that we communicate our ideas, and how revolutionary that's going to be, whether we are going on a new train of thought or communicating new subject matter, or just using our voice in a way that we never have before, in a maybe more like emboldened fashion, and being more, I guess, less on the side of playing it safe, but more on the side of like radical honesty and realness. And yeah, I mean, it takes a thick skin to be able to do that. You have to cultivate your, and discern and choose wisely in how you do that, right? And so there's also an underlying message throughout these cards that keep talking about like watching out for our routines, like making sure they're healthy and sustainable, and that we're taking physical care of ourselves and our own health and our body, and having more work-life balance, so that we don't run ourselves into the ground and completely exhaust ourselves. So again, like just continuing to become more clean and neat in our thoughts and in our emotions, as far as like not going down a train of brooding and festering, regardless of whether that's casual festering or deep generational festering, like choosing a clear mental landscape, not in denial, but in spite of everything that's going on. Like when I am presenting the idea of faith beyond reason, I am not one that wants people to be in denial or complacent or dismissive of what's happening or how they feel within what's happening. But I'm the kind of person that I feel that it's important to be very honest about that and name that, or acknowledge that, but also transcend beyond it and still choose to believe that the Creator can meet us in the situation if we don't give up, if we don't resign ourselves to despair. So I think it's about that. That's a discipline, that's a choice, and it takes patience, and we shouldn't beat ourselves up over it, because the whole point of life is the journey. It is the process. It's not so that we can suddenly, arrive at a perfected place without having gone through the work and earned it, right? Because we've learned that unearned light produces chaos, right? So when we slow down and embrace the process, we can become the happy student that's not beating ourselves up and down on ourselves and feeling like a failure and feeling shame and feeling guilt, all these things. It's like, okay, I'm just going to, recalibrate, get back, pivot, make, adjustments as needed, and not beat myself up over it, but realize that we've done what we can with the circumstances we've been given, and we're going to keep going. And it has to be in a sustainable way, because it's going to be ongoing, and we're never going to be perfected and get there overnight or without an effort, right? Think about when we talk about bread of shame, it means that we've taken light that is satisfaction in some sense without going through an earning process. And because we've taken that light for instant gratification, satisfaction without earning it, it usually leads to some sort of negative backlash. For instance, people who win the lottery who don't have the self-worth or the money management skills or the spiritual foundation or basis to have that money can ruin them or be squandered or both. So you lose the manifestation and it leaves you worse off than you got it, right? Than before you had it. Look at Ozempic. Right? How many decades now? I'm 43. So for 4 decades now, I've been listening to people say, man, if they had just a magic pill where I could eat it and I wouldn't want to eat anymore, that would be amazing. Well, they do now. It's called Ozempic. And there's other drugs that do this too. And people who get on it don't have any ability, or they don't have any desire. I think everyone has the ability to cultivate the qualities within them that they have the desire and the willpower to create. But there are people that don't want to acquire discipline or self-control or restriction or any kind of restraint. And so they choose to take the magic pill instead because they want to look a certain way for whatever reason. It could be a catalog of reasons. And so then what happens is this drug gets in their system and it takes away all their desire to eat. It takes away their appetite. It literally makes them sick to their stomach to ingest food. So now they're going around nauseous and sick, no appetite, repulsed by food. And then, yes, they do lose some weight, but then they end up looking like deflated balloons that are just like they've lost weight really quick. Their skin, their flesh doesn't have time to adjust. And it's very unhealthy. And they're just starving themselves quickly, like in a famine, basically. And so it gets addictive. And they have to keep doing it, or else if they don't, they'll blow right back up because they haven't adopted any kind of self-control. They've just been like not allowing themselves to be able to take in any food and process it. And so then that's why you're seeing all these people who keep taking the drug and they look like literally rotten corpses on a skeleton. Like they're just like, they look like they're melting away. They look like they're rotting in real time and they look skeletal and scary. And this drug is actually like changing people's brains like addictive drugs do. It's really crazy. It's really wild. But this is example of bread of shame in real time. I want to be thin for whatever reason. And I don't want to learn how to make better dietary choices and cultivate better habits. And I don't want to do the workout and the fitness to do that. And I can't accept my basic frame and accept that I'm going to become the healthy version of that and not an impossible one size fits all standard that I'm going to force myself into, right? It's like, it's totally different than a person who's like, I'm going to eat healthy and work out and I'm going to be the most vibrant version of myself. It's like people trying to force the situation and then it ends up causing, chaos and negativity, worse off after than they were before. So again, just enjoy the process. Lend yourself to the process of self-discovery and change. And don't feel like you have to be perfected by tomorrow. But do have, like, I think we have to go through the world with the kind of a ability to accept a paradox. It's like we have a sense of urgency. Like, I want to be better. I want to be a better version of me in the next hour, by tomorrow, by the end of the day. But I'm not going to self-loathe and be in complete dissatisfaction where I'm at. I'm gonna be happy along the way, but I'm still gonna strive for more. And I'm gonna know that the Creator loves me and accepts me where I am right now, because that's where the Creator has me, to be this work in progress, like coming about, with every unfolding moment. But it doesn't mean to just be complacent and be like, well, this is me, and if you don't accept me, then you don't deserve me, kind of thing. It's like, that's not very inspiring. Think about that when you're, like thinking about yourself and you're like, am I trying enough? Am I being lazy? Like, ask yourself, if you were a show, like on Netflix, like we use this example a lot. If we're not in a show, we're in a game, right? So would you watch your show? would you be invested in your character? Like, would you be rooting for your character, or would you be like, yeah, this character just deserves what they get? Like, their problems are their own problems. Like, they're their own fault. Like, that's kind of how I felt when I went back and watched Sex and the City. I grew up, I was a huge Sex and the City fan, loved all the girls. I was like, I want to be this one, I want to be that one. I'm actually like a combination of a bunch of them. Thought Carrie was the best. And then when I went back and watched the series, I was like, well, I like the clothes. But the characters don't develop. They barely change. They don't really learn much over the several seasons. And I honestly was like, I can't honestly process these people and their storylines, because their problems are basically just of their own making. And it just made me furious, you know, because there was no growth. So like at the same time, like as we accept ourselves, also like, are we growing enough? Does this make for a compelling character arc, character development? Or am I just sort of like going through the motions and being complacent, you know? So, you know, sometimes our ennui or our dissatisfaction, there's like a big bug under my filter on my light. I wonder if it's a wasp, or it looks like it might be a wasp. But yeah, our character development, if we're not growing, we usually have this unsettled, sort of dissatisfied feeling, right? And it's kind of different from just being ungrateful, you know, and it probably ties into that too. But when we kind of plateau, our outer light that surrounds us, that hasn't been awakened and embodied and like captured and owned by us yet, it like puts pressure on us. And that pressure is like evolutionary pressure. And just as in nature, when the environment puts pressure on the species evolves or they go extinct. So too, in a spiritual sense, does your soul, the light, the unrealized, unembodied, unclaimed part of your soul pushes down on your life to create pressure to allow you to awaken, to grow in such ways and pass such tests that allow you to recapture and regain those sparks of light. So, you know, how are things? Because like there's kind of a balance, because if you're feeling the pressure, you've been called to grow. If you are going through a period of no pressure for too long and everything's just great and you don't have any complaints, and you know, there's like no kind of tests happening, and you're just kind of like coasting, that's kind of a sign that you need to maybe proactively look for some growth opportunities there too, because nothing is hunky-dory for too long unless the creator's just given up on you. And that you know, if you're the kind of person that's always just been like, well, I'm just moving along, you know, it is what it is. That's what, if it was meant to be, it would, and you're not challenging yourself and everything's okay, then, you know, maybe the creator, there's a thing that if somebody's not making an effort, then the opponent and the creator just kind of forget about them. They're just sort of like the Sims people. They're non-playable characters. They're not making an impact on that big scale. But if you're a person who is like, you know what, I'm interested, I am going to take on spiritual learning, I'm going to develop my soul, you're going to be more challenged because you're going to be, the more your light evolves, the more powerful and influential it is. And so when you go astray, you're under what's called direct supervision of the creator. And the creator is like, no, we can't have you going through some chaotic process to like cleanse this mistake you're making. So, you know, where it feels like we're having more strict punishments, it's really like our angelic team who's like, hey, it's important that you don't do this. Like, hey, like slapping us out of our stupor so that we're like aware of, oh, I need to get back on track. I can't afford that mistake because it's going to take me away from more important work when I'm actually, you know, actually making a dent in things in a positive way. So that's the creator's loving warning to be like, hey, you're walking towards the edge there. We need you back on the trail, Buck. All right, that is all for tonight. We will be back together tomorrow night for Secret Teachings of Jesus, where we delve into the Gnostic Gospels, and I'll keep y'all informed of my developing situation with Substack and Patreon. I'll let you know when the paid content is ready. All right, ciao.